Discover the amazing power of silence. 7 transformative steps to uncover your hidden voice now. The words shimmered on Sarah's computer screen like a beacon, promising release from the suffocating silence that had cloaked her for years. The past few months had been a whirlwind of self-discovery, where her father's ghost loomed larger than life, haunting her with regret and unresolved feelings. As a high school teacher in Maplewood, where whispers spread like wildfire, the stakes felt unbelievably high. All around her, the walls seemed to tighten, squeezing her burgeoning passion for music into nothing more than a whisper. The chance to showcase her original songs during the upcoming spring event hung before her like a tantalizing mirage, but the thought ignited a familiar inner turmoil. Early on, she learned that expressing herself might mean exposing the legacy of her father's abandonment. The irony wasn't lost on her. How could she reclaim a family name shrouded in darkness? With every passing day, her ambition collided with the community's judgment, turning the very air she breathed into a dense fog of doubt. At first, her colleagues had reacted with mild curiosity, intrigued by her latest venture. But as Sarah began to carve her identity through music, the tone shifted. Whispers turned to murmurs. The well-meaning admonitions became critiques behind closed doors. Is she truly honoring the family name? One teacher asked in the faculty lounge, barely concealing disdain. Sarah's chest tightened as the sneers crept in, shoving aside a history of support. What would they say if they knew the truth that her writing stemmed from raw pain, the abandonment of a father who chose fame over family? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Unease settled in her bones. Every note she played felt like a challenge, a provocation against the silence she was so accustomed to. In local cafes, patrons stared at her with eyes filled with unspoken judgment while she strummed her guitar. One afternoon, the tension snapped. A father at the next table leaned over to her, an unsettling grin cutting across his face. "You can't escape who you are," he sneered, the words slicing through her like a shard of ice. The judgment echoed within her, plucking the strings of her insecurity. Perhaps he was right. Was her search for voice a foolish attempt to rise above a family legacy steeped in sorrow? Just as the weight of those thoughts threatened to crush her, her phone rang. It was her father. The sudden thrum of anxiety morphed into a chaotic whirl of emotions, memories crashing over her in waves. Why now? A fragile hope intermingled with resentment, an all too familiar dance. His voice, rich yet strained, called to her, asking for a chance to explain, to come home. Instinctual longing tangled with a vile sense of betrayal. Sarah's heart raced. Could she confront the very man who had abandoned her? What price would she pay to unearth the truth behind the quiet that poisoned her family? As the days rolled by, the approach of the spring showcase filled her with both excitement and dread. How could she develop her voice while grappling with her father's return? Unanswered questions loomed large, piercing through her attempts to embrace her newfound creativity. What would she choose, the freedom of expression or the tether of the past? In the sultry air of Maplewood, silence begged her to stay small, while music urged her to break free. And with every passing day, the conflict between her need for acceptance and her desire for authenticity intensified. The clock ticked ominously toward her moment of truth. A restless energy coursed through Sarah as the days dwindled to the showcase. Each moment felt charged with urgency, the weight of her father's call magnifying her inner conflict. She flipped through her notebook, pages filled with raw lyrics and scattered melodies, the sounds of a life she desperately craved yet feared to own. There was power in those words, but they felt chained to the shadows of the past, lingering just out of reach. Trying to find clarity, she sought refuge on the worn piano in her living room. The powerful vibrations of the keys soothed her anxiety, but with each chord, her doubts crept back in, cloaking her in familiar shame. Would she ever create music that resonated, or would it be forever tainted by her father's betrayal? That evening, an old friend from high school texted her, asking if she would join a jam session at an intimate venue downtown. Sarah hesitated. The thought of performing with a group clouded her with memories of the judgments she had endured. But there, alone with her thoughts, the driving need to cultivate her voice spurred her on. Maybe if she surrounded herself with fellow musicians, the atmosphere would drown out the whispers, both external and internal. She responded affirmatively, adrenaline surging through her veins. This could be her chance to explore uncharted territory, to galvanize her budding confidence and break free from the silence that nearly suffocated her. A mere jam session, yet perhaps the mere act of engaging with the music community could offer new insights into her identity. On the night of the session, the venue burned with a warm glow, and the sound of laughter filled the air as musicians crowded the stage. Sarah's pulse quickened as she stepped through the door. The energy was palpable, and for a fleeting moment, the weight of her father's shadow lifted. Here, she was simply a musician among others, yet the echoes of skepticism wormed into her mind. What if she fumbled? What if they could see the fracture within her? Finding a quiet corner, she embraced the ambience. As the musicians exchanged playful banter, she picked up her guitar, fingers skimming the strings, creating an unassuming melody. The harmonious sounds draped her in an indescribable comfort, and Sarah found herself captivated, allowing vulnerability to seep into her music. Soon, one of the musicians approached her, a saxophonist with a bright smile. "You have a beautiful vibe," he said, gesturing towards her guitar. "Why don't you join us for a song?" The invitation sent her thoughts spiraling. It was time to confront the fear that had long dictated her life. The moment had come to face what had haunted her. She took a breath, each inhalation solidifying her resolve. Climbing on stage, anxiety and determination danced together. Her heart raced as the ensemble welcomed her into their flow. They began to play, and as she strummed the strings, the melody pulsated through her, a cathartic release of self-expression. For the first time, outlying voices faded into the background as she poured her essence into the music. The lyrics flowed effortlessly, each word a brushstroke claiming her narrative. Once she finished the song, applause engulfed her, echoing in ways she hadn't anticipated. Eyes widened in appreciation, her heartbeat synchronized with air vibrating around her. For that moment the fear dissolved. But lurking beneath, the conflict within her father and the legacy of his abandonment hung heavy, ready to resurface. Later, back at home, Sarah sat in the quiet that once tortured her but now felt different. The experience marked a pivotal shift, a small victory that hinted at a turning tide. However, doubts brewed deeper still. Would she sustain this newfound courage? And what if the reality of her father's return disrupted this fragile awakening? As silence loomed, the question gripped her like a vice. Was she ready to confront not only the ghosts haunting her voice, but also the man who had left it so painfully subdued? The time was fast approaching for a reckoning. With each passing beat, the need for resolution closed in decisions awaited her. Would she embrace her independence, ultimately defining her own narrative, or concede to the fraught ties that had long paralyzed her? The juxtaposition was stark, and as she gazed at her reflection, determination unfolded. The hour of truth was soon upon her. In the following days, a strange blend of confidence and trepidation settled in Sarah. The applause from the jam session lingered in her mind, a fleeting illumination against the persistent dullness of doubt. No longer was she merely ruminating on her past. She began to envision a future filled with possibility, one shaped by her own choices. Yet she still felt tethered, the impending confrontation with her father an ever-present shadow. Days crept by, and Sarah found solace in her music. The piano became a canvas upon which she painted her emotions. Her fingers danced over the keys, composing melodies that resonated with her deepest fears and aspirations. The simple act of playing transformed into a ritual of self-discovery, revealing layers of her identity she had initially feared releasing. Each note offered her insight, Each song became a narrative reclaiming her voice. Despite this blossoming artistry, Sarah knew she could not ignore the boiling conflict simmering between her and her father. The thought of his return ignited a firestorm of emotions. Resentment battled with a longing for resolution. She often thought how his absence had fueled her insecurities, but it also stoked an ember of determination within her. She would not let his narrative dictate her story any longer. Preparing for the inevitable conversation, she sought advice from her friends, constructing a mental blueprint for how she would approach her father. "Speak your truth," one of her friends urged, her words resonating deeply. "You have to make your boundaries clear." Boundaries. The term echoed in Sarah's mind like a bell tolling, signaling the necessity of defining her own space, a critical aspect of her musical and personal evolution. When the day finally arrived for her father to show up, a looped reminder in her calendar, it felt as though the world had drawn a deep breath, pausing on the brink of uncertainty. Anxiety pricked at the edges of her pride, and she fought against the instinct to retreat once more into the familiar shell of her past realities. Standing in front of the mirror, she rehearsed what she needed to say, her reflection capturing both fear and resolve. It was time to confront the roots of her struggle with music, the identity tainted by his abandonment. The moment he arrived felt surreal. Memories of childhood skirmishes mixed with distant echoes of laughter drifted back to her, intertwining with the tension of their current reality. Her father, once an imposing figure, looked smaller somehow. He held a bouquet of flowers, an apparent gesture of affection, but amidst the petals, Sarah could smell the lingering tension. The room felt charged, each second stretching like the drawn strings of her guitar, waiting for an intimate chord to be struck. "Sarah." The way he said her name, the softness in his voice, was met with a paradoxical twist in her stomach. This was her moment, but doubt began to swirl again. How hard would it be to lay bare her feelings without it devolving into old patterns of blame and defensiveness? "Dad, we need to talk." Her words came out strong, but her breath hitched as she watched him carefully digest the implication. Just as she prepared for the deluge of emotions swirling within her to be released, something in his expression shifted from guarded to open, the apology she had awaited silently hanging in the air. What revelation awaited them both? Would Sarah finally shed the weight of her past? Or was this encounter merely another step deeper into a tangled web of unresolved feelings? The tension was thick, full of promise and peril. As the conversation began to ebb and flow like the melodies that had been a refuge for her, Sarah sensed the shaking foundation beneath them. Would she find the courage to voice her truth? And would he hear her? In that moment, a realization washed over her like the first light of dawn. The power of her voice could forge new paths. But would she use it? The moment of truth arrived, decisions hung in the balance, waiting for the first note to be played. The room seemed to compress around Sarah, the air electric with unspoken words. Time slowed as she focused on the contours of her father's face, the way he shifted on his feet, almost childlike in his uncertainty. The flowers, now wilting slightly in his hand, felt like a physical representation of their fraught relationship, once vibrant, now dulled by years of neglect and miscommunication. "Sarah, I'm sorry I haven't been there," he began, his voice barely above a whisper. But the sincerity in his tone, though fraught with the tension of years, began to ground her. "Sorry doesn't change what happened," she interjected, her heart pounding. "I need you to understand how your absence affected me, how it still does." Each word felt like a hammer striking against the glass of her carefully constructed defenses, unveiling vulnerabilities she had long buried. "Look, I know I didn't handle things well. The divorce, everything. I thought distancing myself would help you heal. I was wrong," he admitted, looking deeper into her eyes, searching for some form of forgiveness. As he spoke, Sarah's mind played a silent film reel of memories, the moments she yearned for his presence. School performances where her heart raced for the approval of his applause, birthdays shadowed by his absence, and every moment in between that felt unfinished. Each memory unraveled a thread of anger, but with it, a newfound determination emerged. This was her moment, not just for her father but for herself, to reclaim her story. I poured my heart and soul into music. It became my refuge while you were gone, she asserted, feeling the need to assert her newfound strength. But I'm still navigating that region of turmoil you left behind. I wish you could have been part of it. The weight of her confession hung between them like an unseen cord, vibrating with disappointment, but also hope. I never wanted to hurt you, Sarah. I was too caught up in my own pain. I thought I was protecting you, he replied, desperation cracking his voice. I want to be here now. Can you let me try? In that instant, Sarah recognized an unfamiliar emotion, a flicker of empathy for the man before her. His apologies were almost too late, yet her heart wrestled with the possibility of forgiveness. Could she extend a bridge she had always thought too fragile to cross? Trying isn't enough. You need to prove it. I need to see that you're committed to being part of my life, she said, her voice steady yet charged with intensity. Setting boundaries doesn't mean I'm rejecting you, but I just slide back into the silence that once fed my insecurities. Her father looked visibly shaken. What do you need from me? I need consistency, real involvement, and for the words I'm sorry to mean something through action. Can you do that? A new resolve filled Sarah. It wasn't just about forgiving him, but allowing herself the space to redefine their relationship. As silence enveloped them, she felt the trembling edges of her old self fade. What lay ahead wasn't merely a conversation. It was the reinvention of their dynamic, one that would require work and vulnerability from both. Let us start with small steps, she suggested. Join me at the studio next week. Just listen. Music means everything to me, and I want you to understand why. The tension that once threatened to suffocate their exchange eased into something more promising, a palpable flicker of possibility. Maybe the silence they skirted around could turn into melodies of reconciliation instead of echoes of loss. But as they tentatively agreed to embark on this renewed journey, Sarah couldn't shake the shadow of doubt that lingered. What if he faltered again? What if their old patterns resurfaced, leaving her vulnerable once more? That nagging uncertainty was a tune she had yet to resolve. Could she balance the melody of hope with the dissonance of her past? In this new beginning, one question hung heavier than the rest. Was she ready to embrace what a future together could mean, even if it meant risking her heart again? The notes of their complicated relationship lingered in the air, and as long as music filled her life, so too would the constant dance between clarity and chaos. Sarah took a breath, steeling herself for the unknown ahead. Would this be an opportunity for growth or another verse in a long-forgotten song? As the days passed leading to her father's visit to the studio, Sarah immersed herself in her music. Each note seemed to resonate with the complexities of her emotional landscape. She experimented with chords that reflected her uncertainties and frustrations, feeling every strum penetrate deeper than the last. Music was her safe haven, yet it also became an arena, a place where she would confront not only her past, but also the potential dangers of the present. The studio, usually bustling with energy, felt like a cocoon of secrets that day. In the familiar surroundings, Sarah felt both empowered and apprehensive. She meticulously arranged her instruments, each one symbolizing a fragment of her life. The guitar, a gift from her late mother, sat quietly in the corner, a reminder of the stability she had craved. The piano, with its ivory keys, held her dreams and aspirations, and in that moment, she realized that she had an opportunity to infuse their story with the music of her truth. When the time came, she found herself pacing, her heart a chaotic symphony of nerves and hope. Would her father truly grasp the depth of her passion? Would he even care? Uncertainty lingered like a dark cloud overhead. Yet Sarah squared her shoulders and resolved to redefine this musical moment. As her father stepped into the studio, the air thickened with the weight of expectations. His eyes roamed the room, soaking in the atmosphere she had poured countless hours into creating. The once childlike demeanor she remembered seemed shadowed by newfound responsibility, a reflection of their discussions. He approached with a hesitant smile, but the uncertainty remained, mirrored on his face. "Wow, this place is incredible," he finally managed, a hint of awe breaking through his reservations. "I had no idea how much this meant to you." "It's everything," she replied, forcing herself to meet his gaze with steady confidence. And more. Each note carries stories: pain, triumph, hope. She paused, searching for the right words. I want you to understand that I've channeled every moment of your absence into something tangible, something beautiful. But it hasn't been easy. Her father nodded, comprehension dawning as she led him to her guitar. What's your story with this? He asked, curiosity replacing the earlier apprehension. It's where I found my voice, she confessed, her fingers gently brushing the strings. Growing up, when I felt lost, music was the only language that made sense to me. When things fell apart, I wrote until my heart hurt, until I felt understood. Today I want to share that with you. As she played, the melody floated, weaving through the air like threads of vulnerability. Each chord told a tale of longing, frustration, and buried emotions. She poured everything into that song, allowing the music to bridge their chasm of silence. The raw honesty vibrated through the room. In that moment, her father's face reflected a myriad of emotions: realization, remorse, and the loosening grip of his own regrets. She could see the flicker of understanding ignite within him, but uncertainty still flickered like a distant echo. I had no idea it was this deep, he admitted, his voice thick with emotion. I can't say I'm proud of my absence, but I want to support you in navigating this world, all of it. A strange sense of liberation washed over her, driving home the realization that she was not just reclaiming her father but also validating her own narrative. Yet, just as the melody soared, a sudden discord pierced through the lingering doubt of whether he could sustain this commitment loomed larger than before. Just saying that isn't enough, she countered, her heart racing. I need to see this intention transform into action. The past can't rewrite itself. She was caught between hope and hesitation, poised at the precipice of their renewal. Could she truly open that door 3 inches wider, allowing space for trust amidst the overwhelming fear of old wounds reopening? Then, just before her impending uncertainty could fully unfurl, she glimpsed the hesitation in her father's expression. What if I fail again? He asked, vulnerability etched across his face, the mask of confident fatherhood slipping. That single question shifted somber reflections to a challenge. A challenge she knew they both needed to confront. One that could either solidify their new foundation or bring it crashing down. Doubt crept into her resolve as she realized the heavy burden of the next steps lay not only with him but also within her. Was she genuinely prepared to face the reality of what reconciliation would require? How far would she go to protect her own heart while extending forgiveness? The next note hung suspended in the air, resonating with both fear and possibility. Would their duet evolve into something harmonious, or would the notes fall flat, leaving both of them stranded in silence once more? As silence enveloped the studio, Sarah's heart raced against a backdrop of mounting tension. The words exchanged between them hung heavily in the air, uncomfortably settling like dust over long-forgotten memories. She could see the struggle within her father as he grappled with his own insecurities. The old patterns, the familiar haunt of abandonment, loomed over her like dark thunderclouds threatening to unleash a storm. Could she let herself trust? Could he earn that trust again? Taking a step back from the emotional precipice, Sarah visualized the piano. Its keys, pristine and waiting, held within them the potential for creation. It reminded her of her own journey, a mixture of learning, falling, and rising again. With a deep breath, she sat down and rested her fingertips on the keys. In that moment of clarity, she made a decision to confront her anxieties through her artistry. Let us create something right now, Sarah proposed, her voice gaining strength. Let us work through this together. You can help me write a new song. I want to blend our voices and stories into something new. It was an impulsive spark, yet it felt right. The spirit of collaboration might forge a bond neither of them was prepared for but desperately needed. Her father raised an eyebrow, uncertainty flashing across his face. I don't know about that, he hesitated. But she wasn't ready to back down. Everyone has a voice worth hearing. Yours matters to me, she urged, her energy pulsating with conviction. Music doesn't care about our past. It only cares about the truth we choose to share today. After a long pause, her father sat beside her at the piano. The proximity felt both intimate and formidable. As he placed his hands on the keys, the moment shifted to vulnerability, to shared fears emerging from the shadows. He began to play a simple melody, its rawness filled with hesitance but also hope. As they created together, something sparked between them, notes blending like memories intertwining. Each chord they struck was laced with tales of bygone years. She played off his melody, improvising lyrics that poured from the depths of her heart, words of resilience, of hope after despair, of reclaiming the music they had collectively lost. The more they played, the more authenticity seeped through. It became a cathartic experience, each note echoing the promise of a new beginning. Yet, just as Sarah began to feel the warmth of relatable creativity mingling with the coolness of apprehension, doubt whispered in her ear, is this enough to mend their bond? The music ebbed and flowed, an intricate dance of harmony and discord. As the last chord faded, silence reclaimed the room, a pause laden with uncertainty, but also possibility. Her father turned to her, eyes wide, processing the improvised session that had uncovered not just musical synergy but also latent emotions. That felt right, he admitted, a glimmer of something resembling hope flickering across his expression. But what if this isn't just a moment? The question stung, making Sarah realize that a shared song wouldn't automatically fix everything. It was only a step, a fragile bridge over a chasm still teeming with unresolved issues. She needed to steer their momentum toward accountability, to lay down demands not just for herself but also for him. What if we start making this commitment real? She replied, her voice steadier than her thoughts. Can't just be a song, it has to be a promise to try. For each of us. Her heart pounded in her chest as she awaited his response, both excited and terrified of what lay ahead. The journey now loomed larger than any they had faced alone, demanding an unwavering commitment from both sides. She could sense that they were standing at the brink of something monumental. His expression wavered, a tapestry of emotions swirling: fear, acknowledgement, and perhaps the slightest hint of realization. I want that. I just don't know how to start. Sarah understood then. They needed to have the hard talks, confront failures, and craft new narratives rooted in honesty. This moment dictated how far they were willing to journey together and, most importantly, it seeded the need for consistent effort. As she absorbed the depth of this challenge, a new question emerged. Would they be brave enough to follow through? To turn today's musical promising into a consistent reality that nurtured trust, courage, and healing over time? The gentle hum of the studio seemed to ask the same question, leaving Sarah to ponder. A daunting, palpable anticipation hung in the air. They were on a path toward the unknown, filled with uncertainty yet undeniably ripe with potential. But how far could they stretch their promises before cracks began to show? As days stretched into weeks, the promise of collaboration lingered between Sarah and her father, lingering like the last note of a beloved song. The piano became their refuge, a place devoid of judgment, a canvas for emotions that couldn't yet find their words. Yet it was clear that mere musical exchanges were insufficient to mend their fractured bond. Each session trembled with possibility, yet an undercurrent of tension crackled with unresolved pain and hesitation. Sarah devoted herself to the prospect of transforming their musical journey into a broader dialogue. Inspired by the melody they had woven together, she began journaling her thoughts, capturing the raw emotions that mingled during those sessions. Each line she penned became a thread, intricately weaving stories of hurt, longing, and a burning desire for something more significant than mere reconciliation. In the dim light of the studio, she discovered an unexpected capacity for reflection, a willingness to face shadows she had long avoided. Yet, with each revelation, a weight settled deeper within her. She sensed that confronting the past would require not just bravery but also a delicate balance between hope and fear. One evening, she decided to bring a new element into their sessions. "Let us talk while we play," she suggested. The idea of intertwining conversation with music felt radical, yet it echoed her belief that honesty could flourish in the space where vulnerability met creativity. Her father's brow furrowed. "Talking while playing? That sounds complicated." Complicated often leads to clarity. Doesn't it? We can express what we feel instead of just relying on melodies. She countered, igniting a small spark of curiosity in his expression. Tentatively, he agreed, and soon they found their rhythm, notes cascading alongside confessions and fears. It was a revolutionary process, a strange amalgamation of catharsis and uncertainty. As they played, raw discussions about their relationship spilled forth. Each stroke of the keys became a command for honesty, countering silence's heavy grip that loomed between them. Yet, as the weeks progressed, frustration simmered beneath the surface. Sarah's father struggled to convey his emotions, resorting to the music instead, as if it could speak for him. This gesture, though hauntingly beautiful, reinforced the barrier she aimed to dismantle. She couldn't shake off the feeling that their collaboration could only build so high if he remained unwilling to confront the truth alongside her. "It's still just notes," she spoke one day, her voice a mixture of vulnerability and determination. "We need to pull from the depths of our pain. Only then can we break free from this cycle." Silence enveloped the room, a heavy blanket that reflected his inner turmoil. He glanced at the worn keys, appearing to weigh Sarah's words. "What if I open up and it isn't enough?" He finally replied, his voice barely above a whisper. His fear mirrored her own. Would her willingness to bare her soul invite rejection? Could the wounds they unearthed together lead to healing, or would they simply expose the fragility of their connection? Encouraged by a fierce spark of determination, Sarah wrapped her hand around his, placing it on the keys. "Let us turn our pain into our greatest strength," she urged, cradling their intertwined hands. "What if we wrote about our fears? What if we made it an anthem of healing instead of despair?" Her words ignited something in him, a glimmer of acceptance. Together, they began to play a new melody, one tinged with trepidation but layered with the promise of authenticity. As notes resonated, they manifested a mirror reflecting their fears, each chord unraveling the silence that had once suffocated their past. But as they ventured deeper, the question loomed larger. Could the silent places of their hearts transform into a powerful source of expression? In that moment, Sarah understood the paradox they faced. A shared commitment required relentless courage, one that haunted her with the shadow of potential failure. What if the melody they yearned for was buried deeper than either of them anticipated, remaining unuttered beneath layers of fear? The room pulsed with resonance, simultaneously exhilarating yet unnerving. She faced her father, his eyes a swirl of uncertainty, not just about the music, but about the very connection they were seeking to forge anew. Navigating the precipice of revelations, Sarah felt urgency radiate from her own heartbeat. The path was riddled with risk, yet she sensed that destiny awaited just beyond the fray. Given a choice to reclaim their narrative or remain confined to the shadows, she chose the former. But as she prepared to plunge into confrontation, a single thought ignited her spirit. How could she ask her father for the truth when she was still discovering her own? In the weeks that followed, Sarah committed herself to a personal exploration that felt both liberating and daunting. She spent evenings in solitude, delving into her journals and letting her pen spill words that others had long silenced, words that clung to her like shadows. With each entry, she sought the essence of her unresolved feelings. The roots of her discontent nestled deep within familial expectations and unmet desires. One night, as rain tapped rhythmically against her window, Sarah toyed with an idea that had been simmering in her mind. She envisioned a performance. Not a grand public display, but an intimate gathering sharing music interlaced with spoken word, an opportunity for vulnerability and expression. It felt like a risk, but also a beacon of potential, a way to manifest the elusive dialogue she and her father needed. But she knew the initiative hinged on one crucial element: her father's participation. Would he be willing to step beyond the comfort of melodic exchanges and face the rawness of their shared history? The thought made her stomach twist with anxiety. Still, it felt like a step in the right direction. Their journaling led to music. Now it could lead toward something more transformative. The next day, the sunlight poured into the studio like liquid gold, illuminating the dusty corners filled with forgotten memories. Sarah approached her father, heart racing as she articulated her vision. What if we held a small gathering? Just a few close friends? We can perform some of the pieces we've been working on, but also share stories what the music means to us, where it's coming from, she suggested, her voice brimming with passion. He listened intently, his face an enigma of contemplation. You really want to share this with others? He asked, scratching at the stubble on his chin. More than anything, I believe it can help us express what we've hidden for so long. I want people to understand us not just through the music, but through the truths behind it, Sarah replied, aware of the tremor in her voice. The skepticism in his eyes lingered like fog, but a flicker of intrigue danced there, too. And what if we fail? He asked, vulnerability threading through his words. What if we succeed? What if it brings us closer? Sarah questioned, desperation tinged with hope. I need you to take this leap with me. Her determination surged through their shared silence. Life's greatest conversations, she believed, are often veiled in the deep cries of the heart, waiting for someone brave enough to peel back the layers. As the weeks melded into productive sessions, Sarah felt transformation shaping her worldview. The act of preparing for the gathering initiated an unexpected journey of discovery. She practiced hard, and through each note, she unearthed a deeper appreciation for her own voice and story. With every rehearsal, she no longer feared judgment. She embraced authenticity as her armor, realizing that vulnerability could lead to connection instead of defeat. Yet, her father remained immersed in his self-doubt, resorting to the music to express what lay unarticulated inside. His grace on the piano only magnified the emotional chasm she felt between them. Days turned into sleepless nights, each moment intensified by the question that continued to surface in her mind. Could she convince him to embrace vulnerability as she had? As the date of the gathering approached, an underlying tension crackled in the air. One evening, after a particularly evocative practice where they stumbled upon a new piece, Sarah felt compelled to confront him. Why do you keep hiding behind the keys? The music is beautiful, but it's not enough. I need to know you, not just the melodies you produce, she challenged, a cocktail of frustration and longing in her voice. His eyes darkened, shadows of hesitation crossing his features. I've lost my way, Sarah. What if I cannot say what needs to be said? She took a deep breath, her voice now firm yet tender. Then let us explore it together. Make our gathering an opportunity not just to play, but to speak. Together we can embrace the silence between the notes. The weight hung heavily in the space between them, charged with potential and fear. Both were standing at the edge of something monumental, ready to leap into the unknown. But the path forward remained shrouded in uncertainty. As they prepared to face the gathering, both were acutely aware of the stakes. Music could only pave the way to deeper understanding if they could confront the root of their silence. With the drop of a pin, Sarah's heart raced as she realized. Was it time for them to seek the truth fortified beneath their music, or would fear once again leave them in the shadows? The answer lingered in the air, heavy with anticipation as they prepared for the moment that could redefine their relationship forever. The anticipation weighed heavily on Sarah as the day of the gathering loomed closer. Each morning felt like a countdown, her heart inching towards a crescendo of possibilities and fears. She reminded herself of the transformative power they sought not just for their audience, but most crucially, for themselves. The stakes extended far beyond the music. This gathering possessed the potential to cultivate their relationship or, perhaps, to fracture it further. In the days leading up, Sarah threw herself into rehearsals with unwavering conviction. Each note taken from the piano resonated through her bones, a stark reminder of her own burgeoning voice. The soft resonance was no longer merely a means of expression. It became her lifeline. Between each practice, she challenged herself with questions that felt at once exhilarating and terrifying. What truths lay buried under the faint echoes of their music? What stories yearned for revelation? One late afternoon, while she was reviewing snippets of their rehearsals, a revelation struck her like a lightning bolt. Though her father had found solace in melodies, he rarely underscored the stories hidden within them, stories that could bridge the silences of their past. This realization ignited a flame within her. She could not let this opportunity slip away into mere notes and rhythms. With renewed vigor, she called her father into the studio. The early evening light cast a warm glow, reflecting off the polished keys. We need to dig deeper. Beyond the music, what do those pieces mean to you? What emotions drive them? She probed, her eyes searching his for engagement. He ran a hand through his hair, visibly ruminating. "It's all I know. The music is how I cope." "It's easier," he confessed reluctantly, his voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, but it shouldn't stop there. The music is the gateway, not the finish line. You should carry our stories." A flicker of resistance crossed his face. What if sharing those stories makes it worse? Sarah leaned in closer, her voice steady yet impassioned. What if it brings healing? What if our voices, alongside the music, create something powerful? As they locked eyes, she could sense the tide within him shifting. Intrigued but scared, he began to divulge snippets of his youth and burdens he carried, painting a picture of a man entangled in both love and regret. The more he shared, the clearer his expressions became, as if lifting a veil that had shrouded him for far too long. But amidst this budding connection, doubt still clung to him like a shadow. "I worry about saying the wrong thing," he murmured. The vulnerability of sharing an emotional truth, the fear of misinterpreting their shared history loomed large in his mind. Our audience isn't looking for perfection. They are looking for authenticity, Sarah reassured. Her own fears momentarily dissolved in their shared pursuit of honesty. Even as these words flowed between them, a deeper truth reverberated in Sarah's heart. What if her father never found his way past the barriers that imprisoned him? Confronted with this nagging fear, a question crested in her mind. Had she taken for granted his readiness to step into this journey of vulnerability? As she watched him grapple with his thoughts, she had a vacuum of hope tinged with dread. They both wanted change, but what if their conversations led them down an irredeemable path instead? The evening of the gathering finally arrived, the intimate studio now filled with familiar, hoping faces. Sarah could feel the momentum shift as she took her position beside her father. Their practiced routine began to unfold, the music wrapping around them like an embrace, but it felt thin, a fragile facade waiting to be shattered. The audience listened with rapt attention, an atmosphere thick with promise and trepidation. As Sarah's heart raced in tandem with the notes, she felt the urgency to pull her father into the openness they both desperately needed. In a moment of reckless courage, she turned to him, their music seamlessly ebbing away. "Now it's time to tell our truth. Together," she implored, eyes shining with a fierce determination. But would he meet her in the rawness of that moment? Or would the familiar comfort of silence pull him back once more? The gathering's atmosphere hung heavy with unspoken answers as they faced the precipice of their newfound discovery. As the final notes of their song faded into the hushed applause, Sarah felt a tremor of anxiety ripple through her. The moment of truth had landed in her lap, a moment soaked in anticipation and vulnerability. She turned to her father, the soft light illuminating the apprehension etched across his face. Would he seize this opportunity, or would silence once again grip their hands in an unyielding hold? "Together," she urged, the strength in her voice a counterbalance to the uncertainty lingering between them. "This is our chance to express what we've hidden for so long." She sensed every set of eyes in the room focused on them, hanging on their next move. Her father's expression remained inscrutable, a mix of awe and fear mingling within. After a pause that felt like an eternity, he gave a slight nod. "Okay. Let us try," he whispered, vulnerability slipping through the cracks of uncertainty. The audience leaned in an alliance formed through shared anticipation. He cleared his throat, and Sarah felt the air tighten as he took a step forward. "This is a song about my regrets, the struggles of being present when I was away," he began, his voice quivering with unexpected depth. "There are battles I fought alone, choices I never should have made. I lost track of what truly mattered." Each word resonated in the room, a rhythmic testament to pain and honesty. Sarah felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. She had known the struggles, the silence that had echoed through their shared lives. Yet witnessing her father articulate it felt like witnessing a miraculous transformation. This moment wasn't just cathartic for him. It was healing for her as well. Courage swelled within her, and suddenly, she found her voice spilling forth. "We are not just reflections of the past," she added, stepping confidently beside him, the words flowing like a river. "We are both still learning and growing, navigating the landscape of who we can become together." The words released tension that had gathered like storm clouds overhead. With each vocal exchange, they carved paths through their stories, imbued not only with regret, but also with determination aimed at reclaiming the future. The audience bore witness, their silence powerful, charged with recognition as they saw two lives weave together. As Sarah spoke, she realized the revelations spread deeper than anticipated. She was not merely shedding light on their shared past. She was establishing clear boundaries, an invitation into a relationship built on constant communication and faith. Her father mirrored her sentiments, articulating his commitment to presence, to change, to supporting her path in music without reservation. Together, they crafted a theme transcending the lyrics. Resilience emboldened by truth, a symphony of progress nurtured through mutual dedication. The raw beauty of vulnerability ignited something profound. It transformed the gathering into a celebration not of perfection, but of the shared journey alive with potential. As the final applause reverberated around them, Sarah felt a unique weight lift from her chest, a burden she had unknowingly carried. Their melodies unwrapped fears along with hopes, creating a narrative that heralded their reconciliation more powerfully than any performance ever could. Returning home after their transformative evening, Sarah sat at the piano, running her fingers gently over the keys. She glanced at her father, who watched her with newfound admiration, his previous reservations fading into the background. "Thank you for sharing your truth," she said softly, the warmth of her gratitude a tender balm. In that moment, it struck her she had achieved a monumental victory. No longer did she feel defined only by her struggles. She had proven that even the most haunting silences could blossom into resilience through honest dialogue and heartfelt connection. Their journey would not conclude with this singular performance. Instead, it marked the beginning of an evolving relationship, fortified by shared vulnerability and commitment to each other. Sarah could finally envision a future unfettered by her father's absence, one grounded in authenticity and the trust they had begun to forge together. As she played the opening notes of a new song, one that captured the essence of healing and discovery, she embraced the hope that flourished within her. She had permanently altered her narrative by discovering her voice and now dared to walk in the light of her truth. In this rhythm of release and connection, a palpable confidence took root. She had achieved not only a creative bravery, but also a personal renaissance that recognized her full identity. Sarah understood that the path ahead would demand continuous effort, yet she felt no fear in that understanding. Instead, she welcomed growth and unwavering promise to protect her voice and share it in all its beautiful complexities. The time for silence had passed. The time for resonance had begun. You need to subscribe now to the channel for more inspiring journeys of transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others discover their own stories of overcoming. Comment your thoughts and theories about this emotional conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this heartwarming journey.